Hi, everyone. It's Kirsten here. Welcome to another episode of Weekly Hope. I'm so glad that you are joining us this week for a very special episode and a really cool topic, which I'm very excited to talk about with you today. Before I welcome our guest and we dive into our interview, I want to let you know, give some time for people to sign on and just do a little intro of the show and let you know what we're all about here and what we're doing. So we're so glad that you found us. Eating Disorder Hope is a mental health online resource hub. We've got tons of content, articles, videos, video blogs, things like that, available for you. No matter where you are in the recovery journey, we exist to be here to provide resources for you. So that's a little bit about Eating Disorder Hope. Of course, you found us here on Facebook, but you can also check out our website at eatingdisorderhope.com. It's where we've got tons of expert articles, as well as all of these weekly Hope episodes. You can also find those on our YouTube channel, our Eating Disorder Hope YouTube channel. So what is Weekly Hope? Every Wednesday, usually, sometimes 2 times a week. I'm here with my little, you can see her little fluffy head, Elsa, my love here. We're very, very dog friendly on this show. Elsa usually joins me in some way, shape, or form. But we're here to interview experts in the field of eating disorders and across the spectrum of mental health on a wide variety of different topics. And we get the opportunity to not only hear from them, but also give you the opportunity to participate in the conversation. So that is what is so cool about Facebook and this live experience, is that you get to talk. So that means we'd love to hear from you. So throughout the conversation, please just say hello in the comments. Let us know where you're signing in from. Tell us your name, share your thoughts, questions, comments, anything that's on your mind. Feel free to throw it in there. I'm always looking at the comments and want to bring those up on screen and get your questions, because it really is a cool thing and an honor to be able to have the guests on that we do. These just expert clinicians who've been working in the field for years and, sharing their wisdom and insight. So take advantage of the opportunity to ask them your questions. I just want to encourage you to do that. It's a very safe space here. So feel free to do that at any time. So today, what are we up to? We are talking about body image and how to end the body image battles for good. And in honor of today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that I made a conscious decision. I said, you know what, we're talking about body image today and feeling good in your own skin. And so I'm not wearing any makeup. I'm wearing my glasses. I kind of blow dried my hair, but didn't do anything else to it. And I just thought, I think it's really, really important to just say, this is me. And I'm comfortable in my own skin, and I'm fine with being live on the internet to all of you. With no makeup on as well. Usually I put on makeup for the show, but I decided today that I'm just going to love the skin I'm in and just rock it. So hope that is encouraging or inspiring to some of you. And it's also encouraging to me to probably do it more. So anyway, then let's welcome our guest and get into our conversation. So I will bring Camille onto the screen. There's Camille Williams. Hey, Camille.
Hi.
So I just want to say, it says Camille Taylor, though, on your lower third. Is that your name?
Yeah. No, it's just a family name that I have that I use sometimes.
Okay, gotcha. Because they upload the names for the lower thirds from our Facebook profile. So Camille Taylor, but Camille Williams.
Yeah.
Camille is the Eating Disorder Program Coordinator at Timberline Knolls Residential Treatment Center in Lemont, outside Chicago in Illinois. And she is a recurring guest on this show. We've had her quite a few times, and she's always brilliant. So we're really, really glad to have her on this very, very special and important topic. So thank you, Camille, so much for taking the time.
Thank you. I enjoy being here.
Yeah. So first of all, just to get the definition out there, what is body image exactly?
So I like to describe body image as the way somebody views their body. So how they see their body, perceive their body, experience their body. And I always like to separate that from self-image. Body image is certainly a part of self-image. And there's so much more to ourselves as people. So body image is kind of that one little piece of self-image that is our bodies, the homes that we exist in, and kind of how we view and perceive those.
Gotcha. So when we talk about body image, a lot of people might think, okay, well, I might not have an eating disorder, but I do worry a lot about my body or think a lot about my body. When do you know when it's become an issue? Because maybe people might be listening and they think, well, gosh, doesn't every woman hate her body? or doesn't every woman feel dissatisfied about her body in some way, shape, or form? But wait, I should just say it's not just women, obviously men as well.
Yeah.
So how do you know when it crosses that line between something that's just a concern and something that is really problematic?
I always am curious about how it's impacting that person's day-to-day life. So is it intrusive thoughts that are impacting your ability to work or to enjoy the other things that you have going on in life, or keep you from doing things? So especially if my body image thoughts are going to prevent me from eating or from being able to go out in public, that's when it's definitely interfering with just daily life and functioning. So that's when it would become more problematic. And I think body image, like even if it's not to that extreme for somebody, it's always beneficial to kind of work on that body image piece, because I think it's still not helpful to have just negative thoughts showing up on a day-to-day basis either.
Yeah. And can you talk a little bit about the difference between, and this is something that I've noticed in myself, and I've tried to talk to other people about as well, is body image thoughts are different for everyone. And they're not always about, like, it can come across vain, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, people think, oh, people who struggle with body image, they just want to look beautiful all the time. Well, that's not quite it. Like, there are thoughts about appearance or thinness or perceived sexual attractiveness, but there's also body image in, like, how my stomach feels, how my head feels, my muscle tone. Body image can mean a lot of different things, can it?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it can be so individualized, whether it's a certain part of the body, or different aspects of the body as a whole. It can be like the way the body looks, or it can be how somebody experiences a part of their body, like how they literally just like feel about their stomach, or how they experience their stomach, or how they experience their legs when they're walking. So that doesn't necessarily have to be when I'm looking in the mirror, how I see my legs. It can literally be like when I'm walking, how I feel about my legs. So that absolutely is really different for different people. And I think it's interesting because that also speaks to how much of an emotional component the body image stuff has, that it's not always about that body part. It's probably something going on internally. So whether that person is trying to seek acceptance or happiness or a sense of belonging, like, oh, if only, this felt differently or this looked differently, then I would be happy. Then I would feel accepted, either by myself or others. So I think that's the other piece, is that, yes, body image is experienced differently for everybody. And then really getting at, like, what is the emotional stuff behind it is really important, because it's really probably whatever the emotional stuff isn't going to be solved if I fix my body image.
Yeah.
I'm still going to have all of that internal stuff going on.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about cultivating an awareness of the relationship with the body. If someone hears this and they think, gosh, I just hate my body and that's just the way it is, what are some questions they can start asking themselves, or things they can start doing to cultivate an awareness of how they feel in their body and what's going on in the mind-body connection that you were just talking about?
Yeah, so one thing that I often encourage is for people to explore where the messages came from. So if I kind of have this blanket, I hate my body, or, I'm too big, or, this body part is too that, to really explore, like, where is that message coming from? Is that something that I heard from society? Is it something that, because of who I follow on Instagram, I like see these messages about having a thigh gap or something like that? So where is this message being received and reinforced for me? Is it something that I heard growing up from a best friend that I had, or from a family member? Because then I think that can help separate that maybe this wasn't originally my thought or my idea. Maybe it's not actually my value. Maybe it's somebody else's that I've adopted, and just felt like, okay, well, because my best friend said it growing up, that's just what I felt like I've needed to do in order to maintain friends or to feel accepted by others. So I think really exploring, like, first, where does this come from? And then being willing to practice flexibility. Because, yeah, I think body image and self-image thoughts tend to be pretty rigid. So if, for the past 20 years, I've been telling myself I hate my body and my body is disgusting, that is probably just a core belief that now has been ingrained. So there has to be some level of willingness to explore, like, could that maybe not be true? Could my body actually maybe be okay? And so that doesn't mean going from I hate my body to I love my body. It just means, like, am I willing to maybe think something different? And maybe that looks like, at first I'm thinking, yes, I still feel like I hate my body, or I still feel like my body's disgusting, and I can appreciate one little part of my body today.
Yeah, I love that flexibility and like acceptance of whatever you're feeling about your body today. I learned a really great lesson a couple years ago. I broke my ankle and had to have surgery, and that was fun. Not, but in the recovery process, I found, obviously for 3-4 months, there were so many things I couldn't do because I was wearing a boot, and then I had one of those little scooters, and I was going around New York City in a scooter. That was lovely. But I developed so much appreciation for this silly ability to be able to just walk down the street and carry my groceries. So many, it just made me very powerfully aware of what my body could do, and really helped imprint in me a greater sense of gratitude for what my body could do rather than just what it looked like.
Absolutely. I often feel that way when I'm sick too. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to be grateful for my immune system more often, because now that I'm sick, like, I know how hard it works all day, every day, even though I'm sick right now, but majority of the time I'm not. So
yeah, right. I know our bodies are really, really, truly amazing things.
Absolutely.
Can you talk a little bit about the compare and despair trap, body comparison? It can be really easy to say, I'm not going to compare myself, or I shouldn't do that. But how do we translate that into actual practice? What are some tools people can use to get away from the comparison trap?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think we are unfortunately set up to compare to other people, especially just with things like Instagram and pictures and social media just being so much more prevalent. So again, it's how you use social media, because obviously there are really great resources and people to follow, and then some not so great ones that do kind of reinforce this comparison. So yeah, really exploring, like, am I kind of in that too much? So do I need to clean up what my social media looks like? But then also just being curious about how to start to have different relationships with people, whether it's the people in your life. So I know I've worked with people who have like a twin sister, and so they obviously get set up for comparisons often, like family members, friends even compare, like, oh, your twin is like this, or you're the better twin at that. And so, like, those types of things happen with siblings, with twins, with friends, that there is often this comparison component. And I think it's about exploring, how do I have a different relationship with these people? How can I appreciate, the strengths that my sibling has or that my friend has, while also appreciating my own strengths? Another thing I do sometimes encourage is that if comparison is just showing up naturally for somebody, because again, these behaviors don't change overnight. Like, if I have been comparing for years and years, it's not going to happen today just because I say I want it to. I often encourage that if you notice that you are comparing, like a body part or something, like, oh, this person has better legs than I do. Well, what would it be like to instead try to find a different way to compare? So something that I recommend is maybe comparing the color of your shirt. So finding something neutral, rather than like, this person has this better. Instead, I'm wearing a black shirt, that person over there is wearing a green shirt. Because then it's like, it's neutral, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have the emotional heaviness. And then maybe I can even start to kind of like laugh at it, or be like, oh yeah, that's right. Like, I don't want to be seeing myself and other people in that way. Because I also think it affects our ability to have relationships with others then. If I'm constantly comparing myself to a friend or a sibling, I'm probably not going to have the best relationship. I'm probably going to have some resentments, some jealousy that's really going to get in the way. So how can I start to separate that they're their own person with unique qualities and I'm my own?
Yeah, so great. I just want to say, Sherry, Dion logged in a little bit ago and said, this is great. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sherry, so much for saying hello. And Sandy says hello as well. Hey, Sandy. And I see we got some new people on in the last couple of minutes. So just want to say hello. Let us know where you're signing in from today. And of course, feel free to jump in with your questions at any time. Camille, what do you say to someone who's listening to this right now and they're like, that, yes, I believe in all of that. I want that for me, but I feel like that is impossible. There's no way that I will love my body. How can you encourage them? Because I think you mentioned it just briefly, and I'd love you to expound upon it, that these behaviors don't change overnight and the thoughts don't change overnight. Is it too big of a jump to ask people to love their body, especially during eating disorder recovery?
Probably. I think that often see it as a progression. So I think especially in early eating disorder recovery, I'm often asking people just to practice respect for their bodies. I think that's kind of the step one. So can I practice taking care of my body with nutrition, with movement that is, appropriate and feels good in my body, not about punishing my body. And then, not engaging in other, harmful behaviors for my body. So just really that respect, that I'm going to try to respect that my body is trying to keep me alive and helping me live a meaningful life. And so can I do what I can to respect it in return? So I think that's kind of step one. And then I often kind of go to appreciation as the next step. And I think it's a little bit easier for people to often start with appreciating functions of their bodies. So I often encourage to think about, kind of like you already mentioned with walking, I think that's a great one, or appreciating your ability to see or hear or taste or smell. I know before we got started, I lit one of my favorite candles because I just appreciate smelling something nice.
Yes,
some aromatherapy.
Yes.
Yeah, and I can't imagine not being able to smell, a really good candle or flowers that are blooming right now. So just being able to appreciate those things. So maybe I'm still struggling with not liking the way my body looks appearance-wise. And can I add this dialectic of, hey, don't really like the way my body looks, and I do appreciate that I have all these senses, all these different things that my body can do, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I love that. Jumping into some really practical stuff, and when you sent me your thoughts about this topic, which I loved reading, you talk about some behaviors to avoid, or actual practical things to avoid, body checking, dieting, mirrors, that kind of thing. I love that. What are some of these specific behaviors that we can say, okay, if I'm doing that, or this is a barrier for me in recovery, I need to not engage in these behaviors anymore?
Yeah, well, and that's something that I've noticed more often is because I've had some people say well, I have to weigh myself, or I have to look at myself in front of the mirror for a long time. And I started thinking do you though? So that's why I really like to label them as behaviors, because I think in working with eating disorders, it's easier to define restricting, purging, binging, those are clearly behaviors. People see them as behaviors, whereas with body image, I think it's a little bit trickier. People don't necessarily see getting on the scale as a behavior, but it is, or see standing in front of the mirror as a behavior, and it is. So I often encourage people to look at some of those things. So yeah, am I weighing myself, and looking at the effects of that? So it's probably a behavior if it's going to then impact how your day goes. Standing in front of the mirror, am I standing there and judging myself and criticizing myself? Or am I standing in front of the mirror to take a second to make sure my shirt's on the right way, or my makeup looks okay?
Yeah, or don't have to brush my teeth before I go out to it.
Exactly. Yeah, so really thinking about how am I using these behaviors as well? So kind of what's the intention behind it is the trickier piece. But yeah, and then I think clothes can be a part of it. So am I holding on to clothes that either I'm trying to use to change my body and the way it looks? Or am I, really focused on numbers, and how do I take care of myself when I go shopping? So am I really obsessive about the clothes? So I often like to talk about how I think, sometimes people feel like, oh, I need to change my body to fit into these clothes. And I really encourage kind of switching that instead being able to blame the clothes and say, it's not my body that's the problem. I'm not going to change my body to fit into this pair of jeans. Jeans come in all different shapes and sizes and cuts and styles. There are just some that work for my body and some that don't work for my body. And rather than saying like I should be able to fit into every cut and style of jean, like, no, there are certain brands that work for my body, and those are the jeans that happen to work. And that's okay, that it's not my body's bad for not fitting in the other jeans. Yeah, I think it's so easy for us to then blame the body and say, oh, well, I should be able to change my body to fit into these clothes.
Yeah. And I just want to affirm you, Camille. I never liked wearing jeans before my eating disorder, now way after. Like, I've always felt like I don't know. Some people love and swear by jeans, but I've never liked jeans. I've never felt like I found a good pair that like really fits my body right. But I mean, like, jeans just aren't that flattering. Like, let's just be real. They're just not, like, in general. They're super comfortable, and some people love and do everything in jeans, but also jeans are not universally flattering. Like, so I just want to affirm people out there and that, and also just our method of dressing. We used to have, like, people went to tailors, or people had their clothes handmade, and people, and I'm talking like 50, 60 to 100 years ago. Just our ways of dressing have changed so much. And this might be a totally ancillary conversation, but now our clothes are made so cheaply, often in unethical ways, fast fashion, H&M's are all that kind of stuff. I mean, our clothes are not made to like make you feel good about yourself. They're made to just sell massive quantities that are cheap, not necessarily made to fit most bodies well. So that's just my little like getting on a soapbox about how like clothes aren't made to make you feel good, and most are not high quality enough to really fit your body well, whatever it may be. And if you find a really good tailor who can tailor your clothes to fit you the right way, you will feel wonderful in your clothes because they tailor them to suit your body.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great point. I love it. I always think that like the history of, beauty or, fashion, like that is so interesting. And I hadn't thought about it that way. That, yeah, like people did used to make their own clothes. You could make them to fit yourself.
Yeah. It's just
not how it is right now. And so their jeans do tend to be like, oh, one size fits all, like in terms of a cut. And we have very different bodies, all of us.
Yeah. Amen. I just wanted to affirm that for people who are having that battle in the dressing room all the time. So let's talk a little bit then about like moving forward. So practicing those positive thoughts and interrupting those negative body image thoughts and really moving on. Can someone's body image heal completely?
I don't want to say that it's going to go to like zero, like you'll never have negative body image thoughts, because I don't think that's realistic, because I think, we're constantly changing. I think self-image and body image stuff is always going to be changing, growing and shifting. And like I mentioned earlier, since it does have this emotional component, since sometimes when we have a lot going on emotionally for us, we can try to kind of fix the inner stuff with an outer solution. So not getting caught up in that. But if we are going through a pretty emotional time, that might be when somebody is like, oh, well, I'm going to, try to lose some weight, or I'm going to try to do this or that. So it's almost like they're trying to fix the emotional struggle with a body image struggle. So I think depending on even just what's showing up in life, some body image stuff could certainly creep back in, even if you've had years and years of some pretty positive body image. And I think it can get better. And I think it's just something that we have to constantly be aware of. So it's not like we can just like check that off, like, oh, did my body image work, like done there. It's this willingness, like, can I continue to come back to appreciating my body, knowing what it does for me, loving the skin that I'm in. So I think it's just kind of a constant thing. And so hopefully not seeing it as this, like, oh, I've got to do all these steps until I get to loving my body, then I don't have to work anymore. Instead, just saying, like, is there one small thing that I want to change about how I'm connecting with my body today? And how do I continue to just kind of do that slowly moving forward, and continue it? So kind of finding what can be stable and consistent rather than like, let me like work so hard at the body image stuff, check that off my list, and then I'm done, because that's not how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. Just want to get some comments in here. Sandy said, been bullied by my sister about my weight my whole younger years. We're adults now. She's apologized and I've forgiven her. But you're right. It doesn't just go away. How she made me feel overnight. Yeah. Sandy, I'm so sorry to hear that, but I'm so glad that you had some reconciliation with your sister, and being conscious of the daily work of this, that it doesn't go away. Thank you so much for sharing. And then Elena says, oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go.
I was just going to say that I appreciate that she brought up bullying, because I think that is a big part of it. And yeah, whether it's a sibling or, just a peer that you had in school, like, those messages really do tend to stick with people. That's why I think it is so important to explore, like, where did this message come from and have I adopted it? So sometimes I'll talk to people about, like, have you become your own bully? Like, maybe it started out as things that your sister said or that a bully at school said to you. And because that was maybe said over and over again, and if they're not saying it anymore, are you still saying it to yourself? So I think it's a lot about how can we kind of shift into being our own friend rather than continuing what bullies kind of taught us to believe about ourselves.
Yeah, so good. Elena says, hi, everyone, and share the video. Thanks so much, Elena. Appreciate that, and appreciate you joining us. And then Denise, hey, Denise, good to have you. Denise says, since being in recovery, I've learned that my body does so much for me, and I'm now able to do so much more, and that my body is not to be manipulated and made smaller just to get through the day. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, and Camille, I like that she mentioned about manipulating the body and being made smaller, because I think that's a really interesting element of body image in the context of eating disorder recovery, is that there's a whole symbolism of like feeling like you want to become smaller and going out of the world. Like, yes, it has to do with your body and thinness, but it's a whole like psychosocial thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And it is often kind of contradictory, because yeah, even like you doing this like inward motion, like that's often what happens, which is the opposite of what people tend to want to happen. Because a lot of times I probably want to connect with others. Like, I want to have relationships and a meaningful life, and I want to feel accepted or comfortable in my own skin. Like, I want to be able to go out in public and do things. Yet, like, the more and more I focus on my body, the more it just turns inward, and the less and less I'm able to do any of those things. So it is really contradictory that it seems like, oh, well, if I just get smaller, then I'll be able to like be out with people, because then I'll feel okay in my body. And the opposite tends to happen.
Yeah. Why? Oh, the lies of the world and the eating disorder. They're so deceptive, but you're right. And that's why I know that you, at TK really, strongly, advocate DBT, which is dialectical behavioral therapy, and obviously cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT as well. But just that, like, interrupting the thought pattern and cultivating acceptance and replacing the lies is just so important in this whole struggle.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's why we really have to look at, like, how is my body image stuff really impacting me, rather than just going along with like, well, this is what people have always told me, or this is what society says is going to fix all my problems. Like, can I actually pause and think about, like, has being on this like weight loss journey or exercise kick, like, has that actually improved how I'm feeling? or is it just something that I feel like I should do, but is not actually making me feel any better? Maybe it's causing me to isolate more, cancel plans because I'm not feeling well, or because I'm too tired, or because I just don't feel okay. Because often the more people kind of dive into body image stuff and trying to manipulate their bodies, that's when they tend to just be more obsessive, and then it usually gets worse. So even if somebody is losing weight and that's being reinforced by society potentially, they probably are actually feeling worse about body image because they're going to be thinking about it more often.
Yeah. Amazing points, Camille, as always. Last question I want to ask you is, how can someone best support a loved one who's really, really struggling with their body image? Maybe they have an eating disorder, maybe they don't, but what can they say? Because I feel like it's so tricky. If you try to compliment someone, they're going to deny it. Or, if you try to say to someone who is maybe struggling with an eating disorder, and you can see it in their body shape or size in either, direction or whatever, not to say that body size is an indication of eating disorder behaviors or health, but if you notice something, how does someone support someone? What do they say?
Yeah. So, I think as an overall, blanket statement, the less you can comment on people's bodies, the better. There are so many other things that we can notice about other people. And so that kind of goes back to the self-image stuff. Let's focus on who we are as humans and as people, and appreciate the self-image or the qualities that people have rather than their body image, because then that's going to already start to change, kind of the whole relationship with how we feel about our bodies and what we need to do to feel accepted. So I think just as a general rule of thumb, the less people can comment on people's bodies, the better. And I think if it is somebody that you're close to, like a friend or a loved one, it's great to have a conversation with them about what can be supportive. Because I think people are at different levels of accepting compliments or not. Some people do not want to receive a compliment at all, whereas others do sometimes appreciate it. So I think it really kind of depends on the individual. So if you feel comfortable having a conversation with your loved one or with your friend, kind of asking them what is okay and what isn't okay, because they're going to be, the best resource for what's going to be helpful. But yeah, and really I think that we just don't really need to comment on people's bodies. There's just not really a point. I think it does get tricky though too if somebody's asking, because if somebody is really struggling with their eating disorder, they might be asking hey, how does my body look? Do I look like I've gained weight or lost weight? And I would bring it back to what my values are. So if somebody's asking me do I look bigger or smaller? I'd probably ask well, how are you feeling? How's, your relationship with movement and food and all of that going? So really getting to know more about the person and their life rather than oh yeah, you look this way or that way, because that's not really what's important. It's really well, how are you feeling? What's going on for you?
Amen, sister. Great. Thank you so much. This was such a joy to have you, and you are full of so much good wisdom. And so really, really thank you. And yeah, I love the last bit. The less we comment on other people's bodies, the better, because that's just really not what matters, right? Yeah, cool.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Camille, for joining us. I know we'll have you back again soon. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful, beautiful day there in Chicago. See you again soon.
Thank you so much. You too.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope that was helpful for you. It's just super, super practical, nitty gritty stuff that I'm so happy that we get to address on this show. So I hope that you liked it. Please feel free to share this episode. It's going to be pinned to the top of our Facebook page here on Eating Disorder Hope, as well as uploaded to our YouTube channel. So share. Hopefully this will be a light and an encouragement to someone else. I know it was always good and refreshing for me to hear. So I'm going to go appreciate my body. I hope you are able to go do the same thing. And we will see you back here next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern for another episode of Weekly Hope. Have a wonderful week until then, and we will see you soon. All right. Ciao, everyone.